series.
Oh man, that's all I watch.
Hey, did you watch the one on Helter Skelter? The new one?
I have not the new
It's
one.
very good. It's very, very good because it breaks down the families and it breaks down the girls. It breaks down Charles. It texts everybody, the cops, every person. They break down and talk about it. It's very, very, very interesting.
Where do you see it? Where do you get it?
It's on Netflix, I believe.
Is it? Okay.
No, it's on YouTube.
YouTube. I'll watch it tonight.
But it's it's like 5.5 hours long because it's six episodes. Yeah, it's 6 episodes.
It's very good.
Yeah,
and it's because it was a series on like HBO or something, and they instead of me paying for it, I went to YouTube and
I bought it on like HBO Max or Amazon Prime or one of those. But it's a very good series. But you know, Angela Lansbury, the lady that was Murder She Wrote, the lady that was on TV, one of her daughters was one of his groupies.
Really?
Yeah, and they used her for her money. She would buy all the stuff, and they used her. And her mom got her away from her. But it really goes into. I mean, he grew up a shitty life, but he was an evil man.
Oh yeah,
evil man.
Yeah, he was.
All right, we'll start rocking and rolling here.
And the Scientology guy is one of his main.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Lucky Duck. I am Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
It is good to be back. I'm feeling a little out of sorts here. Just got back from vacation. Took a week off.
It's hotter than hell here.
It is. Washington was beautiful.
We stayed in Ocean Shores, Washington, about 70 miles as a crow flies west of Seattle. Didn't know you could even go that far west of Seattle. On the Pacific Ocean, the high temperature, we never saw 70 degrees while we were there. Typically in the mornings, it was 52 and the highs were 65. And you just see the fog roll in. It was absolutely amazing. Had a black bear come in our yard the first day we were there, which was the highlight of my trip.
Wow.
With us today, we have, Andy says he's world famous. Andy's world famous. This guy is a superstar. The most famous man in Knox County for sure, and the most respected and most interesting guy, Mr. Wyman Meizner. Hello, Wyman. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you back.
Thank you.
Your book is done. It's ready to be printed.
It's finally, after 53 years. I actually set this goal 53 years ago when I was at Tech, and wrote 10 pages. I still have them, and realized that I didn't have enough experience both in writing a book or calling, and so I laid it down, and 53 years later it's coming to fruition.
So this is kind of like your first book in a way then.
Yeah. I mean, it's my first and probably my last. I told my wife I'm really tired. I've done like 28 books, and I'm kind of tired.
Are we retiring?
Not retiring. Well, maybe with book publishing, but she says I need to do an autobiography. But I don't want to sit around that long, and
You should do one.
I don't want to tell a lot of things.
You should, though.
About my life.
Because if you don't do it, when you die, someone is, and it ain't going to be the crap you want them talking about.
Yeah.
The stuff that they're going to think is fascinating is not the stuff you want to know. Are you saying you got some skeletons in your closet you don't want everybody to know about?
Well, I was an ornery kid.
Yeah.
And I did my things. I did my stuff.
I think you were just a kid.
And in college, and, there's things that, probably, is not very kosher, but, it's
part of growing up.
It's part of growing up.
We had a lot more time in our ages growing up than they do today, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a post in Wichita Falls a couple of days ago. A guy I went to school with had memories of Wichita Falls and showed Kemp Street, 1980. And all the different stores were open, and it's where we cruised down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, my gosh, man, I met so many people there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're at a car, and you pull in a parking lot, and you're drinking beer underage, and you're visiting with other people doing the same shit. And it was cool. It was fun. Yeah. And those kids don't even do that shit nowadays.
No, it's a different world we live in.
I mean, date wouldn't even be fun today. Everything is predetermined before you even go on a date.
Yeah,
it takes all the excitement out of it.
I can't believe how young kids look today. And I don't know if it's just that I'm getting older, but when I see a 16, 17-year-old kid, he looks like a kid to me. Whereas when I see guys in your generation, like you look like y'all look like grown men.
Well, I tell you what, I made the same comment to my wife recently. Of course, like you guys, I watch documentaries and mostly World War II stuff. And I look at these guys who's flying these Mustangs and these Corsairs and these Marines, and I'm going, these guys are 19 and 20 years old, and they look like they're 30 years old.
Yeah,
grown-ass men.
These guys are grown men because they survived through the Depression, the 20s and the Depression, and they were tough son of a guns. And it's a little bit spooky what we have today.
Yeah, kids today couldn't fight themselves out of a paper bag. And no respect.
Yeah.
I mean, zero respect.
Have you seen this picture? This is one that I think is fascinating. So that is a guy, 4 years is all that makes up the difference in between the two pictures.
Wow.
1941, he's on the left. He's probably, like you said,
17,
18, 18,
17.
And then
And
after
now he
4
looks like
years,
he's in his 30s or 40s.
4 years of war. That's what he looks like.
When I was a kid, there was old people. Mr. Scott lived next door to us. He sold insurance. Mr. Scott looked like he was 75 years old. Mr. Scott might have only been 55. I don't know.
Right.
Because the whole time I lived there until Mr. Scott died, he still looked the same.
Yeah.
Mr. Hensley lived next to us on the other side. He was the same way.
Yeah.
And that pre-aged a lot of those people.
Oh, sure.
But even Hee Haw, Minnie Pearl, Grandpa Jones. Wasn't that his name, Grandpa Jones on Hee Haw?
I believe so.
Grandpa Jones looked like Grandpa Jones for 35 years.
He did.
He got a bad case of genetics somewhere. But kids today do look younger, and they couldn't do what those guys did. I mean, there's that song, Jamie Johnson has a song called You Should Have Seen It in Color. And he talks about my tail gunner, Johnny McGee, was a high school teacher down in New Orleans. And that song really is very emotional to me because it makes me think of both my grandparents who were at Pearl Harbor. And it just makes me think of that whole generation of people that have been forgotten about.
Yep.
And these young people today have no clue the sacrifices made.
No clue about the sacrifices. I mean, it's amazing. You know, recently, in 1973, I believe, I met a guy when I was at Tech, and his name was Steve Wisnott. And he was a young man from El Paso, and he had belonged to a gang, I believe, or at least he was run with a pretty tough crowd, and so he got busted for something, and the judge gave him an option. You can either go to prison or you can go to Vietnam. And I mean, Steve looked like he was 15 years old. And he went to Vietnam and was a door gunner in a chopper there, and throughout the whole ordeal. And I mean, the nicest guy. You would never have thought he was a tough cookie.
Most dangerous jobs in the military during World War during the Vietnam War.
Absolutely. And so he came back and did not finish high school. Took his GED. Got into Tech with the caveat that if he faltered one time, he was gone. They told him, they said, we're going to let you in, but if you falter one time, you're out of here.
This is it.
He went on and got a master's, got his his bachelor's, his master's at San Angelo, and he got his PhD at Texas A&M, taught at Provo, Utah. Came back and was the head of the range department at A&M. And then went on to Africa, went to Sudan, went to Afghanistan, Iraq, went to all these daggum places. And for the good of really the good of humanity, he, in one location, I forgot if it might have been Sudan, he was building a university. And so to pay his men at the end of the week, he would come into town, go into the bank, get like $40,000, change clothes, and come back out so he wouldn't be robbed.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Now, how many young people would do that today?
They would.
None.
We don't have young people like that.
And right now, he is, God bless him. I visited him just the other day. He has glioblastoma. He's 70 years old. And he's going to be buried with full military honors in San Antonio, Texas.
That's awesome.
And I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
He has a knife collection from all over the world, and I'm going, wow! I didn't know there's many fun-looking knives, from Saudi Arabia and everywhere. And so I said, Steve, I'm going to send you one of my Green River Skinner. I said, it's a cheap blade, but I put the boat arc handle on it, the Osage Art handle on it. So I signed the handle to my friend Steve, and I sent him a book, and he called me up immediately, and he said, man, I really appreciate it. But I got a message from his wife just a couple of days ago and said he's really falling fast now. So, but I mean, I look at him and I'm going, my God, this guy, when I met him, he looked like he was 15 years old, and he accomplished all these things. Didn't even finish high school. How many would do that today?
He is the epitome of going to the military and getting something out of it.
That's right.
He learned structure. He learned to take care of himself and discipline.
Yes.
My youngest son's in the military, and the best thing ever happened to him because he was a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
And I love pain to death. But he knew how to work me and his mom because he was smarter than both of us.
Yeah.
And when you get a kid that's smart and lazy, they can figure more ways to get out of shit than to
You're
do
exactly
stuff.
right.
And the best thing Payne ever did is he went somewhere where he was probably still the smartest guy in the room in every room he's in. But he wasn't getting babied at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was getting someone telling him you had to do this. Well, now he expects that.
Yeah.
And I told someone today, they were talking about vehicles and stuff. I said, the greatest day of my life was when all three of my kids could buy their own cars, have their own insurance. I don't have to pay for nothing. I don't have to sign no piece of paper or nothing.
Yeah.
It makes you feel accomplished.
Sure.
Because they're starting to do stuff on their own now.
Sure.
And that's a good thing. So this guy here, though, if it was not for the military, he probably would have ended up on the streets or doing whatever. You never know.
My boys, whenever they were in high school, of course, I was single, and the boys were with me, and they said, "Dad, we want to buy a horse or a pickup." And I said, "Boys, I can't afford to loan you the money, but I will sign for you." And we went to the bank, and I still remember those little old boys signing that note and me co-signing for them. And they paid every dime of it back.
And they learned a lesson.
And to this day, you will not find more hard-working boys than those two boys right there.
See, they learned that. It's passed down.
I'm telling you. I mean, those boys are working son of a guns.
But see, that's what we've missed with the military these days because now the military's woke. We got ladies wearing dresses and charging shit or get their guys. It's complete bullshit. But there was a big section of our society that needed the military. They needed someone.
That's true.
And we don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
They don't get disciplined when they're there.
Yeah. Well, and I think to our detriment, we've preached college too much, I think.
I think so. I think so. In fact, what was it last night?
We're gonna need plumbers one day.
Last night on Fox, I was watching, and they had a guest on there, and he said that 40%, I believe it's 40% of the people who enroll in college do not finish.
I believe it.
And we need to stop stressing college.
Yes.
And I totally agree. I mean, I needed college. I did because I didn't use it as far as my profession as a wildlife biologist, but I learned a lot of things about scientific community and about writing and things like that helps me today. But there's a lot of people they don't need it. They just need to go out and, like I say, learn things like being an electrician and a plumber and a welder. I mean, we got to have them.
Yeah.
And they make damn good money.
Very good money.
College was the biggest waste for me because I didn't take college serious. Yeah. I was there to go to parties, to meet girls.
I wasn't. I was there, fun. My God, and just get out as quick as I could.
And I was paying for my own school.
Yeah, well, I was too.
I didn't get grants and stuff, so if I pissed it off, it was on Jeff, nobody else, but I didn't care. Yeah. Well, that was wrong. I would love to have that over again, and I would have went to an East Coast school somewhere, a big up north somewhere. Yeah. I look back now and thought, man, that would have been a fun experience for 4 or 5 years, and I would have got me a degree. But I wouldn't change what I do now. I love what I do, and I wouldn't do anything to go back and change something that makes me any different than what I am.
Oh, me either.
Being poor and struggling was the best thing ever happened to me.
Yep.
And it makes you learn how to do different things different.
I did not want to go to college, but I knew I had to. And my dad, who finished the 9th grade, my mother, who finished the 5th grade, they always stress you must go to college because they can take everything that you have, your clothes, your food, but they can never take your education. I never forgot that.
That's that age deal, because I worked with an old man that was a furniture salesman at Huff Furniture, and when I was going to school, he was on my ass all the time about grades. What kind of grades are you making? Are you doing this? Are you studying? You know, blah, 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 blah. Our secretary, she saw you at the bar last night till 2 o'clock in the morning, blah, blah, blah. Well, looking back now, he was just trying to look out for me. He liked me.
Sure.
But he used to tell me that all the time. He said, Jeff, I'm going to tell you something. They can take everything away from you, but they can't take away your education.
Right.
He goes, if you get a degree, it don't matter what you get it in. You got a college degree. Our teachers right now, we're in a big teacher's bind. The whole state is. And I think it's all over the United States.
It is, yeah.
But they're just wanting someone's got a college degree. You don't even have to have a degree in teaching. Just be a college degree, and we can make an emergency deal to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would love to be a teacher. I would love to teach history, but not at a small school. I don't want to be a school where kids want to learn that subject.
Yeah.
I think a history professor in college, I always thought would be a cool job because you got people that would love that class because they're not all taken as an elective.
If I taught, I mean, I wouldn't, but if I was, said I've got to teach at Tech again, and teaching history, I guarantee you the students would love it because I wouldn't teach what I learned at Tech, in history, because it was just like this mundane ABCD
learning dates, learning the key figures.
I would say, listen to this story.
Right.
This is what happened. This is why it happened.
Yeah.
And I would make it very interesting for people.
Well, and that's one thing that they've done, and I understand why they did it. They made this curriculum that everybody has to follow.
Sure.
But at the same time, like it's killed the teacher's spark because it's just the same thing every year, and the teachers aren't trying to learn anything else to bring anything new to their class.
Right.
Because
I totally agree. Totally agree.
The teachers that teach history, they don't know anything about it. They don't study history.
Yeah.
I mean, I've studied I knew nothing about the and I can't even think of it now. The stuff that happened over there after World War I. I had no clue about it until I did it on my own terms.
Sure.
What's it called? The Galapa?
It's the Gulag Archipelago was the book, but I can't remember what all they went through off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But I had to go look at that. I wouldn't. I had no idea about it.
I didn't get interested in history until like 1987.
I grew up liking history, but I learned the same things about history. By the time I was in 6th grade, I'd learned most of what I was going to learn through high school. They didn't teach us nothing else because I didn't have an out-of-the-box teacher that was like, hey, I want to tell you this story.
Yeah.
Like this book. My friend Lucas Bellinger sent me a book, In the Hands of the Great Spirit, 20,000-Year History of American Indians. Mm-hmm. Well, it talks about how many Indians were here at one time.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to read this book because it's going to teach me some more stuff. I listened to a podcast the other day. There's a guy named Dr. History that's got a podcast, and he's kind of a cheeseball, but he's a professor. He's a doctor. I think he's an actual medical doctor, maybe. And he's a history buff, and he's out of Wyoming or Idaho or somewhere. And he talked about tobacco the other day. Tobacco was a part of it's a really neat deal how the tobacco was. I mean, they had stogies.
Yeah.
Were the old cigars.
Yeah.
But it's a 30-minute lesson on just the history of tobacco and how it related to the Indians.
Oh, wow.
And the cowboys and stuff. And I enjoyed that one because it was something I never thought about, but I learned something on it.
Sure.
And that's what I want to learn. I want someone to teach me something like Sacagawea. I did not realize she died a young lady.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she died like at 26 years old.
Really?
And they didn't want to pay her the money, but she was more important to them than her husband. Her husband's name was I want to say Bonabert, but that's not it. He was a French guy. He was a French trapper. And he went to get a job as a scout for Lewis and Clark. I am fascinated with Lewis and Clark.
Yeah,
that is my new fascination right now.
It's cool stuff.
I mean,
Have you seen the Columbia River?
Have I seen it personally?
Yes.
Years ago, back in the late 50s.
I saw it for the first time this past weekend, and I would not want to be Lewis and Clark on there in a raft.
Pretty tough. What I saw was tough. Even as a little kid, I still remember the salmon jumping through the waterfalls.
Uh-huh.
Well, see, we were at Cape Disappointment between there and Astoria where Andy and them seen it, where it's coming into the Pacific. It's 4.5 miles wide there.
Good
but you
gracious.
get back up in 50, 60, 70 miles, and it's got canyons on both sides of the walls. There's no way to get out. I mean, you were at the mercy, and the water's 1,000 foot deep in some places.
Yeah.
But they were an amazing. Are you looking up her husband's name?
Yeah, trying to.
What's his name?
I can't.
Was it Bonaparte or something?
I can't pronounce it.
Let me see it.
Right there. Spouse.
Toussaint.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, Toussaint Charbonnet. It was his name. Toussaint. Jean Baptiste Charbonnet was his son. He was real famous too. But anyways, that he got a job working for Lewis and Clark as a scout for them. Well, he come up, and the only way he got that job was because his wife was whatever Indians were in Montana and Idaho is what she was.
Yeah.
So she could find a place for them, but she would have to translate from her Indian to his French to their English.
Wow.
And that's the only way they got through the places.
That's incredible.
But when she died, she had two sons, Jean Baptiste and the other boy, and Lewis Meriwether gave money to them.
Wow.
To help those kids get raised and stuff.
Yeah.
But the dad was pretty much a worthless drunk, I think, basically. But
Yeah.
But that's a hell of a story. But I think she died at 26 years of age. I don't
26.
Think
Wow.
I don't think she lived a long time.
Wow.
But she was instrumental in us getting through there.
Yeah.
I mean, the Indians, that was a major.
Oh.
You think about just inviting someone in, because those Indians knew once the white man got in there, they weren't leaving.
Right.
So you had to bribe one of them. Mm-hmm. And
This says she either died at 24 or 95.
it was 24. It wasn't 95. She died a young lady. She died a really young lady. But
I wonder if there's some
it's probably the Billy the Kid shit. Everybody's trying to claim it.
discrepancies.
Yeah, I've been to her hotel that's named after her in God Almighty, right outside of, if you leave where Little Bighorn is, and you go west in Montana, there's a Sacagawea motel somewhere.
Okay.
And they got a lot of shit named after her right there, and I can't remember the name of the town.
Which story do you believe with Billy the Kid? Do you think he's dead in Fort Sumner, or do you think he's in Hyco?
I have no idea.
Have you watched the docuseries on it that's out now?
No, I have not.
It's a good one. You would really like
I
it.
pass over it because I don't know. I'm more into World War II stuff.
That is a really good docuseries, and it touches on his childhood. His real dad was a really good guy, and his dad died. They paid money to go on a wagon. If the docuseries is true, because you know how that stuff is.
Yeah.
They were on a wagon train going to somewhere in Texas and Missouri, going to New Mexico or somewhere, and they lost the cabin. The Conestoga wagon rolled over with all their shit in it, and the dad done something to himself, and he never got better and got sick and died. Then his mom married a kind of a jackass. Had a little bit of money though, and tried to raise the boys, and then he was caught at a whorehouse, and I think Billy the Kid shot him.
He's just kind of a bad seed then.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a bad kid at first. He just had that was a shit life for kids. You imagine being a kid raised at Fort Griffin.
Oh my goodness.
Or Dodge City.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, or the mountains, or anywhere it's at like that.
Yeah.
That was a horrible life.
It was a real bad environment for a child to be married, to be raised in.
And a guy had a chance. The girls didn't have a chance in hell back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
You either were brought up as a lady, and you was a debutante, and you was going to marry the banker or the whatever it was,
Right.
or your chances were either to be a prostitute,
Yeah.
or a prostitute.
Yeah.
That's what it come down to. That was your opportunity. You want to be a prostitute or a prostitute?
And that was a
Those are two
very
choices.
short window of time that you could be an effective prostitute.
I would think so,
I would
too.
think so, too.
You know, Big Nose Kate, was she a prostitute?
I think so.
Yeah, I think later in her years she was probably not much of a prostitute. She was not very busy.
Yeah, I would imagine just by her name.
Big Nose Kate.
That was a whole different world. We went to a house in Astoria. I think it's called the Gulver's Mansion, and it was owned by every big city I've ever been to in my life: Galveston, Texas; Biloxi, Mississippi; Duluth, Minnesota. Every town that sits on the waterway, the biggest, nicest old antique house was owned by a ship captain.
What was the name?
I think
I thought it was the Flavel House.
Flavel, not Gulliver's.
You're
Flavel,
way off.
The Flavel House, Flavel Mansion. It's a beautiful building, sits up on a hill, big mansion. I'm guessing 3,500 square feet.
Yeah.
They had bathrooms in it. They were outhouse boxes in the house, but they had that, and they had bathtubs and stuff. It's amazing. But the lady that was the Miss Flavel, she got married when she was 14 years old.
14.
And she kept a clean house, was one of her big things, and had the most beautiful home in town.
Wow.
But every town I've gone to along a waterway, the biggest house is owned by an old ship's captain. If you look at them old towns on the Mississippi, it's going to be the same way.
You know, I photographed a house back in the 90s for a book I was doing with Andrew Sansom, but that wasn't the name of it. It was a beautiful mansion in Galveston.
God, what's the name of that damn place? I've been to it before. I want to say Biloxi, but that's not a damn thing. I just saw something on 30 because it survived the big hurricane. When all the other ones got knocked off, it survived.
God, it was gorgeous.
Moody Car.
Moody.
Yep.
Moody Mansion.
Moody House.
Moody Mansion.
That's it. Moody.
What are the
Moody
other
Mansion.
mansions there?
Car, 1859.
Yeah, those. He was a ship
Ashtonville.
captain. Moody was.
Yep.
Well, the ranch you've gone on, the King Ranch, that guy was a ship captain.
Yep, he sure was.
I watched it. Have you? There's
That was it right there.
Which one? The Moody Mansion
Yep,
there on the left.
Yes.
Yeah. That was. I'm 99% sure. Yeah, I remember the staircase.
Oh, right there.
There was a beautiful staircase in the house.
Isn't it amazing how they did that back then? I mean, look at that.
And that
that'd be
staircase
hard.
was-
That'd be hard to do today.
Oh man,
It probably come from overseas. They would ship in a lot of this stuff.
Because that's how it was at the Flavel House. It's just this big, beautiful staircase, and it's built in 1883. Mm-hmm. It'd be hard to do that today with today's
the
technology.
craftsmanship, that they had back then is just amazing.
How tall were the rooms? Because you asked the curator there.
14-foot ceilings.
Okay, what an odd number,
14 foot downstairs, 12 foot upstairs.
Wow.
When you go into the houses, like I've been in the house of Seven Gables in Salem, Massachusetts. How tall are you? 6'1", 6'2"?
6 foot.
You're not walking in that house hardly. I'm 6 foot tall. It's right at your head.
Wow.
A big tall guy's got to bend over to get in there.
Yeah, sure.
But the ceilings were low because it was so cold up there.
Yeah, right. Understandable.
And that's at Seven Gables houses neat. In Salem, you see the old houses, and they all got the old glass. You can tell that it's an old house by the I don't know if they had lead in the glass or whatever they did with their
Probably
glass.
did.
Their glass was different than the glass we have today
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I did not realize this until recently that there's copper mines around here.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. You got copper breaks 40 miles north.
There's one out here on the McFadden Lane.
Where's it at on McFadden?
It's before you get to Croton Creek on the south side.
On Jake's?
No, on the
Spike Box.
And really, there's the only thing that's left. I don't think it was I think it was just like an open pit mine, and there's like an old concrete something there, and there's a lot of copper lying around. Now the one that's on what's now the Venata Grande Ranch used to be the old driver's ranch there, Adams Ranch. That actually had a tunnel back in the 60s. I remember riding up to the mouth of it, and it would go down, and it had an old railroad track. And I say rail track, it's an old rail track that was drawn by mules, I suppose, or pulled out by hand. And you could, back in the 80s or 90s, you could go up on the hillside, and the rails were still there. I mean, we're talking about little rails, maybe 2 feet long, with little tiny spikes in them. Mm-hmm. And the rail ran out to a part where they would dump the copper, and then they had this wooden, beautifully with the dovetail box. And I don't know what, but it had different compartments in it, and that was still there. And it's still there.
Really?
I flew over it the other day and saw it. But it's rotted down essentially.
It would be dangerous as hell to try to go in it.
Well, in 1971, they they thought about reopening that mine, and there's a mining company came in, and they tore that mine up, and the rails are sticking out of the hillside.
Was that much of an enterprise here?
No.
Never took off.
Orrin Driver told me he was born in 1884. And before he passed away, he told me that he remembered when that mine was still functional and they were still producing copper out of it.
We heard about this. Andy's father-in-law was telling me about it. Mm-hmm. And I said, and I didn't know nothing about it. I know there's coal mines at Newcastle.
Yeah.
But I didn't know but copper prices still are not much.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, they make pennies out of them. Yeah. I think copper prices, 50 cents a pound maybe.
Really?
It was not very much at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get a lot of copper.
Yeah.
And most of the big copper mines are going to be in Wyoming or Utah where they do strip mining. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
But I did not know that we had copper anywhere. Was there any gold mines ever around here, Claims?
No, I don't think so. That, and you can find, I remember as in the 60s when I worked cattle out in that country, you could find pieces of copper strewn miles away from this place. So I don't know how they pinpointed this one location to build the actual, tunnel into the hillside. But looking into it when I was about, 16 years old, I knew better than to go down in there because it was real sketchy.
Really?
Real sketchy. I mean,
probably somebody dead in there nobody knows about.
It had, your gypsum. We don't have good rock here, so you got so gypsum and some old sorry limestone, and so I wouldn't dare. And there's always a rattlesnake right at the mouth of it, always perched there. And
enough to keep me away.
So I just went, I don't think so.
Have you noticed a lot of rattlesnakes this year?
None.
I don't know.
I've not seen a rattler.
I didn't have much turkey hunting. I did a little bit of turkey hunting, but usually I always run across one or two.
Yeah.
And I didn't see.
I think 2011 put a hit on them.
Really?
Yep.
I hadn't seen.
I'm sorry, not 2021. Winter of
the freeze.
2021. Yes,
the freeze.
The big. I think it put a big hit on them.
I haven't seen any rattlesnakes. Like around the lodge, we'll kill one a year.
4.
Yeah, going home tonight probably, but usually on 2279 on the road here.
Yeah.
When I first moved out here, if you drove to town at nighttime, you was rattlesnakes on the road. I was thinking, Jesus Christ, they have anything but rattlesnakes here?
Yeah,
they're everywhere, and you very seldom see one.
Yeah. Even in the autumn time, I know that when I was a kid, like on a Saturday night, Dad would tell us, "Hey, let's jump in the car and go count rattlesnakes in October."
Yeah.
And we'd drive like from our house on the Brazos all the way to Truscott and back, and there was rattlers all across the highway. You don't see that much anymore.
No, I mean,
wild pigs. You think hurt them too?
I've heard that. I know that there was a den that existed west of Benjamin, and before the hogs came in, and then I went to the den to check it out after several years after the hogs moved in. There wasn't a snake around.
Really?
Yep.
Those pigs
Not
probably
a
wiped
snake
them
around.
out.
So you've seen rattlesnake? I've never seen a rattlesnake den in person.
Oh yeah, I've seen several.
There's one right here on this road going back south, going towards O'Brien.
Where?
Right at that old house. Right there on the right side. I've seen.
No, well, that makes sense. Like an old abandoned house. Yeah, I'm talking like just 15, one that's built in the rocks.
A couple of years ago, I went through there in November. We had warmed up.
Yeah.
And it got cold again, and there was probably 15 rattlesnakes, all 5 foot long, laying on that road right there. Somebody run over every one of them and killed them.
Really?
But they go to that house.
Yeah. Sure. There was a den a few years ago. My brother located east of Benjamin, and he told me about it, so I was going to get my camera and go down and check it out. And I remember walking up and looking down into this little draw, and there were just rattlesnakes crawling everywhere.
Oh, my goodness.
And I just very carefully eased down in amongst them.
No way.
And knelt down, and none of them rattled. None of them paid me any mind. They were just crawling around, and I was photographing rattlesnakes everywhere.
How many do you think were there?
Oh, goodness gracious. I don't know. I know one day I counted 11 at another den about a mile from there that I walked up and knelt down, and I counted 11 rattlers laying around me.
Hell no.
My goodness.
No
and
way.
One coming up toward me to go in a hole, then I just backed up and left. I don't have a problem with them.
What time of year was this?
Usually around February.
So they're still kind of lethargic.
Well, it's on a windless day. It can be 40 degrees. But when the wind's not blowing, and they're always on the south side of a hill, always on the south side of a hill, and the wind not blowing, they don't like wind.
Okay.
And you can pretty well count on finding them.
Is it on the south side because it gets natural sunlight and it warms them up easier?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not doing that. That sounds crazy. And they didn't rattle?
No, they wouldn't rattle. I mean, I didn't disturb them. I just eased up there and just knelt down and watched them.
How often does a snake like that, a 4 or 5 foot snake, he eats a rat once a week?
I don't know. I kept a rattler one time all summer long, caught him in the late winter, kept him all summer, and I named him. I can't remember what his name was, but he was a big son of a gun. He had like 14 rattles, and I remember I would shoot sparrows for him. And I would pitch him in his little den or his little cage. And I remember he would ease up to them and nose them around to where their head went into his mouth first, and he would swallow them. And I would take him out on a walk to exercise. And I had a stick, and I just kind of put on either side of him and make him kind of crawl.
Like walking a hog.
Yeah. And then one day I made a mistake. Well, and it probably wasn't a mistake, probably the best thing. I moved it off of concrete. It was just a cage that had no bottom. And I moved it out on the ground. That night, he burrowed under, and he's gone.
Never seen him.
Never saw him again.
Old George was gone.
So what do they do? Have you ever seen them burrowing? Like, do they just thrash back and forth?
with their nose. They dig with their nose.
And they can dig with their noses.
Yep.
Did he get pissy like when you were walking him?
No.
So he knew.
He rattled one time in all the months I owned him. One time. And when he rattled, he struck. Mm-hmm. And it was just a sudden, and that was it. And he struck. And what happened, he was around a log, and I had my stick, and I moved my stick around, and it scared him. And he struck at that stick, and he rattled instantly and then quit. And after that, he never rattled again.
But other than that, you never had any problems with him.
My dad had a couple rattlesnakes that he trained dogs with them. Like people would bring their labs, they would scare them, shock them around the snakes, so they'd stay away from them.
To cut their fangs out.
They would wrap
So
their mouth shut.
So I've seen them doing on the King Ranch area.
An old drinking taxidermist buddy of Dad's in Wichita did it, and Dad would, have 2 or 3 of them, and he'd water them and put water on them, and they'd suck that water in through their skin.
I've watched them drink, and I caught one time on the Brazos River, and he was huge, an enormous rattlesnake, more so in the body and just the size of the circumference of his body, and a very strong rattler, and a fighting son of a gun. I called him Blue Toe. And in fact, I took a photograph of him, sold to National Geographic. They kept it it was on their TV for 2 years. They bought it and had it on the wall there when they're in their TV show. And I took him to release him back at a den, and there was a big spring there, and he crawled up to that spring and just raised his head up and put his nose in the water, and just there you could see him just pulling on that water.
And that's how they do it.
Just like
that's crazy.
Like pulling on a straw.
I wish I could find that picture. This one is all over the place, but I can't find Bluto. The diamondless diamondback.
Oh yeah, the patternless. Yeah, that's a heck of a rattler. Now, the one on the far left is the most dangerous. That's a Mojave.
This one?
Yes. That snake scared me.
Why?
When I took that photograph, I was actually had that rattler up on a little kind of a hogback ridge. And so I straddled him with a 100 millimeter macro lens. And it was a chilly day. And so I didn't think he would strike.
Oh, because it was so cold?
And a friend of mine, a biologist friend, brought that snake from the Big Bend. So that is a Mojave rattler, the most poisonous rattlesnake in America. And I was coming down on him, and the way you can tell a Mojave from a diamondback scientifically, from a scientific standpoint, is the pattern of the scales on the back of his head,
right there,
between his eyes.
Those?
Yes. And so I was going to focus in on that, and I was shooting, and all of a sudden he just struck straight up at me. Just jumped straight up, and I jumped and fell down on him.
Oh shit!
And when he came up, he came down on his back, everything on his back, and he was trying to right himself, and I had one hand on the ground trying to get off of him, and I finally got off of him, and that's the only time I've really been scared of a rattlesnake.
He knew you were there.
He never acted, never put his tongue out, but when I got to a certain point, he struck straight up at me. And when he did, I jumped and I stumbled, or my foot slipped out from under him and I fell on him, but I kept one hand on the ground and stayed off of him, and he was on his back because he struck up and then fell on his back. And then I rolled off of him, and then he righted himself, and my blood pressure was up.
So what did you have to do after that?
I quit.
Clean up my pants.
I got my picture.
You got your picture, and what did you tell your friend? Like, come get him?
I took him, put him back in the box.
Now, when you say you're catching these rattlesnakes, do you have a stick that you?
Yeah, one of those catcher jobs.
Oh, okay, you got one.
In the early days, I didn't. All I had was a wire with a hook in it, like a chicken. Have you seen old methods of catching chickens?
No.
It's just a long wire, a heavy wire with a U in it. Mm-hmm. And you'd reach and grab by the feet. That's the way my dad used to do it back in the 50s and 60s, and that's what I used as a snake catcher, and I would catch rattlers, especially big ones, just to photograph them. And then I got me a regular snake catcher because it won't hurt them. That other one will scratch them, and you're not really supposed to break the skin on them. They say they'll get a fungus or something and die.
Did I tell you about the boy in Oklahoma that was using the snake catcher and got bit? Game warden at Hobart, where we were at, he told me this story. He said he got a call that There's a snake biting victim by this mountain down there. So he goes over to it, and there's this guy standing in the road waiting on EMS to get there. And he goes, what happened? He goes, oh, I just saw a snake and it bit me. He said, well, where were you at? I was just right here. He goes, where were you at? Because they were trespassing on a place they weren't supposed to be. Finally, the guy said, oh, okay, gosh dang it. I was up there on that hillside right there. He goes, well, do you have a snake? Well, I got one in my bucket, and that one got away from me up there. So I'm going to go get your bucket and let that snake go. And he walks up there and lets the snake go, and he comes down to him. They take him to the hospital. He said, I'm not going to give you a fine. You learned your lesson, but don't be going places you're not supposed to be in there. The guy told you, you don't want you over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, it was a dry strike. 2 days later, he gets a call from dispatch. Same place, same mountain. Goes up there, same guy waiting in the ambulance. This time, this guy's crying. He's hurting. Oh, whole hands swelled up like freaking, like it aired it up, crying. And he gets him in the hospital, and they give him a bunch of vials. And he gets about 3 days after it's over, he goes to see him in the hospital for 3 days. He goes, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going to give you a ticket for trespassing. I told you, he writes him a ticket. He went up there and found another snake in a bucket and let that snake go. And he goes, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm using them catchers. The guy would catch him and have the catcher on it. Then right before he'd to grab him, he'd let the catcher go and then grab him on the back of their neck.
Well, that's not very smart.
No, he bit his ass. He said, I'm telling you, the holes are almost the exact same spot the ones before were.
Oh, good gracious. There was a guy down down by Menard in that area years ago, kept a rattlesnake. I heard this story told down there by some people, and he kept a rattlesnake in his toolbox, and he would put it under his hat. And like take his hat off and go, hi, kind of a deal. And that rattler struck him. He reached in and grabbed him one day and struck him, and he died before he got to the hospital.
I saw the guy, the preacher guys that does the snakes. That guy got bit the other day. He had blood squirting out of his neck and shit bit him in the neck.
One of those
dealers or whatever.
In Appalachia or whatever that worship. Yeah.
I'd like to be in the back room just to watch them idiots do that.
Oh man,
because I love
it. Because I'd be afraid the snake would bite somebody and then get away, and then I got to figure out how to get away from
he was talking to it and kissing on it and stuff, and all of a sudden he kind of tensed up and started squirting. We were at the Texas Trophy Hunter show one year, and a guy got in a sleeping bag and got bit by a snake, bit him on the thigh.
Well, you deserve that.
It's like swimming with a shark and then get mad at the shark. Well, you're swimming in the water he lives in.
Right.
It's a bad deal, but you're in his territory. Well, when you crawl in a sleeping bag and you put 40 rattlesnakes in with you, don't be shocked when one bites you on your ass.
Well, what happens is those guys have these rattlers that they do with all the time, and these rattlers get accustomed to human, presence. What I want to say when I'd see people doing this, say, well, let me go over here on the Brazos and find me a blue toe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the big boys, but mean boys who doesn't know what a man is.
Right.
And let's pitch him in there and let's see you do it then.
Yeah, you ain't going to do it then. What's the biggest snake you've seen?
Oh, golly. Okay, the biggest snake that I've ever, it was in South Texas.
Of course,
snakes go real big down there. But here, one time I was trying to get a bunch of rattlers to sell to purchase a regular snake catcher. And so I was dynamiting a rattlesnake den. And I saw this big rattler in a crack in the bluff. And I told my brother, I said, man, here's one really big rattler by his head. You could just see by his head, it was huge. I said, throw me a stick of dynamite down here, and I'm going to blow this bluff off, and we're going to catch you some big snakes. Because I see other snakes also going up in this crack. So I stuck the dynamite up in there and lit it, run around the side of the hill, and when it blew off, it blew this snake in two.
Oh, man.
And he was still 47 inches long.
Ooh. So he was an 8-footer.
He's still 47 inches long, and he was blown in two.
I wonder what something like that would weigh. 50 pounds? 40 pounds?
No, probably 10 or 12 pounds.
What am I thinking there?
It would be worth a lot of money, though.
Yeah.
That's $10,000 snake.
It's because of the size.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was the head the size of a tennis ball?
It was, I don't know. All I remember, it was astonishingly large head. Astonishing. I had not seen a snake that big in a long time.
Was he still trying to bite you after it was over?
He was trying to crawl away.
Yeah. I saw a deal where some Chinese guy, they eat king cobras over there in Thailand or wherever the hell they are. Maybe Nancy Pelosi will get bit on her ass while she's there. So anyways, they had a guy cut its head off and threw it in the sink and was doing it, put his hand down and that son of a bitch bit and killed him.
Really?
Yep.
Was it a cobra?
It was king cobra.
Ooh, boy.
And it bit and killed him.
I saw Anthony Bourdain. They kill the cobra right in front of you, and I guess
drink the blood.
Well, no, you eat the heart as it's still beating. They'll take it out, and you take it like a shot, and that's just part of what they do over there.
That's too daggum weird.
I couldn't do it.
No.
We went to Pike's Market when
He
we
said
were.
it beat as it was going down his throat.
That's too strange.
We went to Pike's Market when we was in Seattle. They throw the fish and stuff, and they have all kinds of markets. But they had actual real. Were those Chinese food that we had, or was it Korean or Vietnamese?
It was Chinese.
I get them all confused. I don't know how the hell you tell them apart. So I know that makes me sound racist, but shoot me. I don't know. I don't understand it all. But they we went to there. They had a Greek place. Every ethnicity had its own food place there. It's a really interesting place. I'd like to go back just to see it again and walk around and see the different things.
That was in Seattle.
Yeah. But I would not go.
Other than that, I wouldn't see anything else.
There's nothing else in Seattle to see. You drive by and there'd be homeless camps.
Yeah.
Just tent cities popped up everywhere.
And it wasn't like tents like Coleman tents. It was like old blue tarp tents.
Yeah, yeah.
Me and Michelle, 2 years ago, we were in Seattle in August, and we drove out on a really nice. We went down by the marina where they keep all the big nice boats and stuff, and we went out on a head or a peninsula. Big, beautiful homes. I'm talking $1, $2, $3 million houses just lined up there, and in front of them was rows of Cousin Eddie's fucking old trailer and tarps. They'd have signs, "Will work for drugs," and blah, blah, everywhere. And people they don't do shit. I got the airport. Somebody said they just ignore this shit. I would turn my water hose on.
Oh yeah,
I'd make their life freaking miserable.
There's no public bathrooms. When you get to Seattle, they've all closed down their bathrooms because the druggies will go in there and then they'll shoot up. So you can't, if you've got to pee, you got nowhere to go. They've got outhouses. They got porta potties everywhere.
Called the honey
buckets.
The honey buckets. They're everywhere.
But my son, I've got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. Well, they got to go. 4-year-old. They got to go to the bathroom every once in a while. And we would we have a bathroom when no public bathroom.
The honey buckets.
No bathroom for anybody.
I don't understand why they tolerate that kind of stuff.
That's the thing I don't understand, because we wouldn't put up with that shit here.
No.
I say that, but Austin, Texas puts up with that shit.
Well, yeah, but that's Austin.
Yeah, but we're not going to put up with that in Lubbock. Wichita Falls ain't going to put up with it.
Right.
Abilene's not.
Right.
I mean, that's the problem. They just keep turning the other cheek all the time, and now you got guys shooting up heroin in the Target bathrooms, if they're even in the men's bathroom, because they might go in the girls' bathroom because they don't know who they are. And that's a whole nother story. I read this weekend where a guy and his wife went to a doctor. She's going to have a baby. And one of the questions was, is she a biological female? She's having a freaking baby,
I don't know.
You have to be biological female to have this is a doctor asking you this. First, you can't be that stupid.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. Could you imagine taking your wife to have a baby?
Yeah.
Is she a biological female?
Well, how else did this get here?
How do you think she got knocked up?
Where did this come from? What source this insanity?
I don't know. I mean, who started this and how it's going? This all started, I'm assuming, back in the hippie days at what's it called? Roxbury or what was it? Park Hashberry.
Oh, Hashberry. Yeah,
that's where it all started from,
yeah.
and it's just grown and grown and grown. But that was the first progressive hippie movement in our country. Was a Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco. You don't think that's where it all started, Andy?
No.
Well, like old Harris the other night, saw her on what was it, Instagram. She said, "I am a female. I'm wearing a blue suit," and I'm going, "This is insane."
What does this have to do with
what does it have to do with anything?
Yes, none. Well, where do you think it started? If you don't think it started with the hippie movement in the Frisco in the '60s,
that was about. No, I don't think it was that. I just think that we've gotten to a time where it's just insanity. The literal inmates are running the asylum now.
But I think it all falls back to that, though.
I have seen, and I was about to look it up right now, when Rome fell, it's basically what America is now. Nobody was working. Things were too easy.
Yep.
And there was a lot of transgenderism and gender politics when Rome fell. I was actually about to look it up.
There we go.
So 250 years.
There we go.
Is about the end of a civilization.
They said that when the biggest problem was that men quit working in Rome. Things were way too easy. Everybody could pay to have things done. And there was also a time of this weird gender thing. So I was about to look that up right now. But if it happened to Rome 250 years ago, maybe it's just a natural progression that humans go through. I don't know.
Good gracious.
It's just crazy to where we have come from.
Yes.
From World War II, the greatest generation.
Yes.
To this. I mean, it's just so... George W. Bush, not a fan of his at all anymore.
Yeah.
I used to really like him. But his dad, George H. Bush, 19 years old, landed on the aircraft carrier, got shot down. He was born with a silver spoon, but there wasn't a lot of silver spoons in. You had to go fight.
Right.
I mean, Elvis Presley was in the military.
Yep.
So, I mean, George H. George Herbert Bush, he fought for our country.
Yep.
You know? So somewhere between him and where we are now is when all this shit happened.
Yes.
And we all want our kids to have better lives. My grandkids have been all over the United States this summer. They've all had 2 to 3 trips. I mean, they've got to go places I never got to go. That's what I want them to have. Some sacrifices were made by us to make sure that happened, but that's what you want to have happen. I don't want to die with a bunch of money in the bank and never been anywhere.
Yeah.
I want to have some deals. But how much do we give these kids before they just expect it and they don't want to go out and work to give their grandkids or kids something?
You know, whenever my boys were young and their mother left us and we were there by ourselves in Benjamin, you know, I just laid low. I said, guys, you know, it's just 3 of us and I'm on the road and we're going to have to stick together and we're going to have to work. And I mean, the boys would go out and just they would trade. There's one guy there down the street told me, he said, "Man, there's not a better trader than your boys." He said, "They'll trade you out your britches." I mean, these guys can trade.
Yeah.
And they were little kids, and they grew up knowing how to work, and I wanted them to do that. It's like when Pate came to me when he was like a junior or senior in high school. And he said, "Dad, I need to make a down payment on a pickup, but there's not any day work." And this was like in January. And I said, "Well, let me show you. Let me go check and see if the furs are worth any money." So I called Albuquerque, and the guy said, "Yeah, you know, cats are bringing on average $130 a piece. So I'm going to show you how to trap bobcats, and you can make your down payment." He went out and caught like 30 bobcats in about 3 weeks, and showed him how to skin them. I remember one day he called me and he said, "Dad, I'm doing some stuff. Can you skin those cats for me?" And I said, "No, you caught them, you skin them." And he had to come home and skin his cats, but he got his down payment and he bought his pickup.
Do your grandkids have the same kind of work ethic?
Oh, Pate's kiddos, they work like some of them. He makes them go out and do chores, feeds the dogs, feed the horses, feed the cattle, feed the sheep. I mean, they've got chores every day.
Country kids.
Yes.
See, that's the difference. We don't have no country kids hardly anymore. The average person that listens to this podcast that grew up in the country lives in the city now. You know, I told somebody the other day, "You're a country kid." No, I'm not either. I'm a city guy.
Yeah.
I live in the country, but that doesn't make me a country kid. I mean, we've had show hogs and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not a country guy.
Yeah.
Andy's not a country guy. And so
Well,
you are, but you're not.
Right.
We were raised in a small town in the country.
Yeah.
You're a country guy. You grew
Right.
up on a farm.
On a ranch.
Yeah. And so,
you know, ride 11 miles to town when you wanted to go spend a weekend or a Saturday in town. I'd saddle a horse and ride, well, actually on the highways 11 miles, but through the country about 7. And I'd ride through all the rough country and the creeks, and I'd go to town, spend the day riding around with my buddies, and then I'd ride home late in the afternoon.
we're going to, if things keep going in the way this country is going, and it's not getting very good, there's going to be a lot of hungry people come wintertime.
Yep.
This winter?
Yes.
You think so?
I think so, with the food shortages and stuff. I think they'll probably be okay, but the next winter I think is really going to be bad. But people like out here, we're going to be fine. Protein is not a problem for us.
Right.
Now, maybe the things we like jelly donuts and shit, we ain't going to be getting that.
Yeah.
But we can survive on what we have here. Tony's got a
sure.
garden up there at his house, you know.
Sure.
Andy's father-in-law's got a big garden. We'll be fine food-wise. And we've got protein out the wazoo. Well, can you imagine living in the inner city in Dallas?
Oh, no. I've sat in a hotel room in downtown Dallas before and just stared out the window and looked at the traffic and thought, what would happen if all hell broke loose?
You'd be wanting to get your ass back to Benjamin real
Well,
fast.
look at nothing but a solid stream of cars
Yes.
on the interstate going around, and I'm going, everything would be total, complete chaos.
Yeah. That's what's so funny about all these liberal policies that we see. You'd get conservative real quick if things got really, really tough.
I think so.
If the rubber met the road.
I think, what's that old saying that's you've never met an atheist in a foxhole?
No,
Yes.
or a tornado cellar.
Or,
Right.
If someone's in a tornado cellar, I've been there before. A lot of praying going on by people.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think it'd be interesting to see, like, let's put some shit to the fan and see if these liberal policies are still what
Exactly.
you're all about.
Exactly.
And I don't think that you
agree.
would be. I
No.
think everybody's talking, everybody's special and everybody's unique and everybody should be treated this way. But I guarantee you, if it came to feed my family or yours,
Yeah.
you're up shit's creek without a paddle.
I agree. I totally agree.
I mean, I've got buckets, rice, beans, flour, sugar. I've got stuff in case something happens.
Yeah.
My wife is a very good cook. We'd survive on that. And I'm telling you right now, you can wrap a dog turd up in a corn tortilla or flour tortilla, and it can probably taste pretty good. So we'll be okay. And we're going to have lots of protein in our area, whether it's a deer, a duck, a hog, whatever it is.
Right.
But those people living in towns, they don't have that. AOC just the other day said, I don't understand why we got to grow all this stuff when you can just go to an Albertsons. Well, yeah, they don't understand. One of the politicians did the other day.
Oh my!
I mean,
AOC,
they don't understand that someone has to farm those vegetables.
They have to produce. The eggs don't grow on trees.
No, and they do not know that. No. Chickens are making a big comeback in our area. Really? Starting to see a lot of people with chickens now, and I don't think that many people are eating eggs. People are just preparing in case they need one. Yeah. That's the greatest protein there is.
Yeah.
If you have a chicken, you got eggs, and you've got the actual machine that makes it that you can eat too. I don't think you can come up with a better piece of protein than that.
Yeah.
No, it just regenerates. I don't know. You've seen things from when they were at their best in America.
Absolutely.
And to now.
Absolutely. Born in 1950. I remember the 50s, from about 55 forward. And I just remember happy times, people working, businesses were booming, and then I've seen the decline, and it's sad. And
just the person that you see now is totally different.
Oh, the type of person,
what they're made of today.
The people. Like I say, I grew up working with these older guys that were born in the late 1800s, and I'm proud to have done that, because I've seen this, what now would be in history books, and then I see compared to what's today, and I just kind of shake my head and go, I can't believe the change that's occurred in just one lifetime.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous, because you can't find young people, and it's not just young people; it's people 40 and under. They don't know how to handle a conversation.
Right. I agree.
I mean, just normal little things you talk about.
Yeah.
I visit with everybody. If it's the lady taking our bags at the airport or whatever, I talk. I like to visit. I like to find out what people are about.
Sure.
And you'll find people that love to talk back, because not very many people will talk.
Yeah.
Everything's just a transaction in life now.
Yeah.
And I want things to be the way it was before. If Andy Griffith, that's the kind of world we need to live in.
Yeah, I agree.
And it'll never happen.
Yeah.
But a world where people were friendly and they were respectful to each other. But if times were tough, they would help each other out. Even if it was your enemy, you would help them.
Yep.
And people just don't. They don't stop to try to help anybody anymore. They want to take a picture.
That's true. You don't. I mean, I've stopped and helped people, especially in the wintertime, but generally speaking, you just kind of, pass going by, because you don't know what you're going to get.
Exactly.
I'm a stopper.
How many times have you heard, you see this damsel in distress only to find out that she had her big boyfriend hiding out
exactly.
with a pistol underneath and was just waiting for somebody to stop so they could rob them. And now that I've got kids, I don't ever stop.
I always stop. I always do. No. You need some help.
In the wintertime, I do. And when it's really, tough weather, I've picked up several people when it's really bad, and they've all been very kind, very nice to me, and, bought my lunch and that type of thing. I didn't ask for it, but I just don't. You just don't. I don't know. You don't see the number of people though in distress on the highway much anymore.
That is true.
No, because cars are better.
Cars are way better.
Right.
No flats like they used to be. I'm sure I'll get one on the way home tonight.
Right.
I had a guy. Two ladies, two lesbians, and they were obviously lesbians. If a woman's got the same hair I have and they're built like me, she's on that team. Anyways, they were outside of Knox City, and they had their window roll. They had their window down just a little bit, and they were looking at on a phone. You could tell they were lost. And I would come up next to them, and that one noticed me, and they were scared to death. And I said, "Ma'am, do y'all need some help? You're obviously lost here." Yeah. It was going to go on the road that goes right by towards Peyton's. That goes by the cemetery. And go just south right there. There's not a road there.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't need to go that way. And they were trying to go to somewhere at Rochester. Finally convinced them that I wasn't the killer that they thought I was. But they were scared to death.
Really?
Like, ma'am, I'm just trying to help you. If you don't want help, I'll leave. But you're lost. And finally, she kind of told me where she was going, but she was scared.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the new book.
Sure.
The new book is about varmint hunting.
It's about predator calling. Yeah.
Predator calling.
Yep. Yeah. It's called The Art of Predator Calling: A Portrait in Tradition. And it's about traditional calling, not about electronic calls. It's about the way I grew up learning how to call from the old men who called back in the 40s and the early 50s.
Did the Indians do this too?
Yes.
How did they do it?
Earliest days, the earliest historical event that I found was in 1854 with Marcy expedition. I think it was at when they were trying to locate the head of the Red River. And he had a Delaware Indian guide who used an eagle bone call, or either an eagle bone call or a piece of a leaf in a bone or something. But anyway, he was calling antelope within rifle range so they could have food for the larder.
I've never heard anybody calling up antelope.
Yeah, and it imitated a fawn in distress. Well, instead they call up a lion, a mountain lion, and it rushed him. And he said, "Luckily, we got a good shot in and killed it." And he said something to the effect of, "It is an instrument you don't use in dangerous country." And so that's the earliest historical.
So they called up a
account.
mountain lion.
They called up a mountain lion.
They
This
eat
is in
it?
1854. They didn't say.
That was a delicacy to them. I know a lot of the Native
I knew
Americans
that
loved
some
to
of
eat
them
mountain
did,
lion.
yeah.
What does that mean in dangerous territory? Like if there's a lot of natural
like
predators?
in wilder country, in wild areas.
Right.
And
Back there-
I think that might have been the term that he used. But I've got the quote in the book because I've got the foreword. The foreword is written by Neil Wilkins. Neil Wilkins is a good friend of mine. He's the CEO of the East Foundation. He is probably he's an intellectual. He's the kind of guy who can go in and have a conversation with the best minds, economic minds, come out, grab a rifle and a backpack, and go into the Gila wilderness and camp out for a week. It's the kind of guy he is. When he was in graduate school, he ate roadkill.
Ooh.
He went to East Texas over there and studying forestry, I believe. And he said we'd pick up anything dead that was still fresh on the highway and take it home and eat it.
East Foundation, is that the King Ranch? That East down there?
No, that's the old East Ranch, the Robert East Ranch.
Where's it at?
That's at Hebronville.
But same area down there, though.
Yeah, that same
Their
area.
daughter was married
Yeah.
to a king, right?
Right, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
And so, well, he was actually, the son was married to a Clayburgh. And the East boy was married to a Clayburgh. And so that put the King Ranch and the East Foundation together. And so, and then we've got.
So why would he eat roadkill? Go back to that.
Well, the roadkill. He said we couldn't afford anything.
Oh, really? Just it was from
He
privation.
said we had to eat.
Right.
So we ate
That's all they
alligator.
had.
We ate everything that we could find that was still fresh.
So you've never been hungry, Andy?
No, I never have. I mean, and
But this
is that good or bad? I don't know.
This guy's a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy is so intelligent. It's incredible the things that he knows, the depth of his knowledge. And so I was so honored when he wrote the foreword to this book, and it's a very I hope I can live up to what he says in the foreword.
I'm sure to be really good. So back in the Indian days, they used these calls.
Yes.
When did we start seeing calls commercially made?
The Burnham brothers, Mr. Burnham. There was Winston and Murray, and then there was Mr. Burnham, and I think he started calling back in the 30s.
Because that's the first ones I've ever heard of, is the Burnham brothers.
Yeah, and then you had your Weems, and I've got a book a friend of mine loaned me at home that's got essentially every commercial call that's ever been made. There was one made years ago in Lubbock, have a fountain pen. It's a very, very collectible call now. And I used one time and called up a Bobcat back in the 60s. And a friend of mine had it, and that's the only call we had that day. And went out in his some old car that had a clearance of about 6 inches and drove way back out on the ranch, hitting high center, went up on the bluff, and he had a 303 British, and he loaned me a 30-06 that I'd never shot before, and we called up his Bobcat with his call, and today that call is a collectible.
Right.
And so this book covers all of the commercial calls that's been made, I guess, since commercial calls were constructed. So
Now, do bobcats and coyotes, will they come to the same cadence?
yeah, they come to the
calls, they
same.
will?
Bobcats like a squeakier sound sometimes, especially if you're going to lure them in close.
Really?
But they'll come to the same call.
So
Yeah.
you're not having to. You're not
Not
saying,
really.
okay, I'm targeting bobcats today. I need to do.
Only time I'll target a bobcat is if I'm in bobcat country, and I know, it's like this winter. In fact, the last cat I called up and photographed, I was thinking this is good cat country. This would be a good spot to get a cat in. Sure enough, here come this beautiful tom bobcat come walking right up to me, and I got some great images of him.
Do you see foxes out there at all?
I've called up a couple of foxes over the past about 3 years.
I have two that live in my router. I see them I got the Ring Video doorbell, and
Yeah.
there's two of them. There was one 2 or 3 years ago. I'd see him coming home from the lodge, and I saw just 2 nights ago,
Yeah.
5 o'clock in the morning, two foxes are in my yard.
The other morning, I was sitting out on the porch, and there were 2 gray foxes across the road on my wood pile.
Yeah.
They're right in the middle of Benjamin.
I don't get it. I don't get why.
Well,
they're
they're in town because the coyotes eat them.
Oh, they will.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're-
Whenever I was trapping for a living back in the 70s, the only place that I would find fox was up in the Rimrock country where they could get away from coyotes.
Because they're prey.
But if you got away from the Rimrock down into the cattle area, down into the grazing areas where there were a lot of cattle and coyotes hung out, you never caught a fox. It was always up in the rocky Rimrock area where they can get away from the coyotes.
So that's why you
know
see them in town. Because I see them at Knox City. I got
In
one by.
town, Monday, I've seen foxes. The other day, I was passing through some town. It might have been Monday or Knox City. It was early or late. I can't recall exactly which. But I saw 2 foxes in neighborhoods just trotting across the road.
There's one by Hunt Oil that's by my house because I see it all the time. And then there's a couple that live, like if you're going out, but you know where Charlie Langford used to have that little shop right there by the supply house.
Yeah,
I've seen them there for years.
Yeah.
Now the Indians, they were not big on shooting coyotes, were they?
No, not at all.
That they looked up to them, right? Or
Yeah,
they respected
it was
them.
It was kind of a a highly respectable animal. Yeah.
But they would shoot bobcats.
That I don't know. Now the guys that I took to show some ranch property, and they were from Del Rio. It was that tribe down there. What would it be? The
Eagle Pass tribe.
Yeah, the Eagle Pass tribe. Anyway, they said that coyotes, bobcats, and white-tailed deer are sacred.
Was that Kickapoo Indians?
Kickapoo Indians. They
So
said
white-tailed deer were?
white-tailed deer. They said they would kill them, but whenever they were processing them, it was all a very sacred ritual.
So coyotes, bobcats, and white-tailed deer.
Yes.
What were they shooting then? Because that would have been the white-tailed deer would have been a staple for them. I would have thought.
Oh, they shot them. But that one of the reasons they were looking at this ranch is because they wanted to show their kids to bring them back to the old ways. Now, they didn't buy the ranch, but there were several of them involved in looking at the property. But they explained to me one of the reasons that we like this is because there's a lot of whitetails, and we want to bring our young people out here to kind of pull them back into the old ways and show them the respect for the animals that they should have.
I think we're going to see a big transformation in our country in the next 20 years. I think it's already taken place. Is that we're going to see a big emphasis on letting bears, wolves, mountain lions live in neighborhoods and live around people.
Yeah.
And then we're going to start having people get eaten by them. And then they're going to be wondering what the hell the problem is. Because New Jersey is getting overrun with black bears right now. Neighborhoods are just
black bears
crazy.
I can see because black bears is nothing but an overgrown coon.
That's
Right.
exactly right. But the people, the bunny huggers and the granola crunchers, they love them. You know, oh, we gotta they do not.
Well-
I saw a dumbass in Crested Butte 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, before I ever got in that business, was selling bumper stickers talking about how bad fuel is and don't drive a car.
Yeah.
Well, who the hell are you selling that bumper sticker? You gonna see somebody put it on a freaking back?
Yeah.
You want them to put it on a car?
Yeah.
And I
Right.
thought, what? And I asked him that, and he goes, "Oh, I hadn't thought about that."
Yeah.
You know, and he was against hunting. He
Yeah.
didn't want us to hunt elk. He wanted to put more wolves in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's not good for the. That's not good for
Well,
the environment.
man has intervened so much that we have to continue. Back in the Lewis and Clark days, everything was as it has been for 10,000 years. But now then we have been such an influence on population dynamics that something we have to continue. I'm for wolves. I like wolves. I like that. I mean, I've studied wolves, and I mean they've got family units. They've got hierarchical systems. almost like human beings. But they do kill. They kill big game. They have to. They're not rabbit eaters.
The problem is they'll kill elk, and they'll kill 8 elk and eat one, and the other 7 are just dead.
You know,
and that happens a lot.
I don't know if that's something that's normal, because the renegade wolves used to do that. I've got a book. The title of it is called golly, I haven't looked at it probably 30 years. It's The Last of the Loners. The Last of the Loners. I saw it when I was at Tech, so I ordered it. And it talks about the last renegade wolves that existed that are now extinct. It's the species like the Texas species of wolf, Ludoviciana. Canis lupus ludoviciana was the buffalo wolf. It is now extinct. Canis lupus monstrabilis, which was from the Concho River south, it is now extinct. But you still have Canis lupus canadensis, Canis lupus Alaska or whatever. You know, there's like 19 or 13 subspecies of wolves. And but those early day wolves, once their natural prey species were exterminated, like the buffalo wolf, they had to turn to cattle. And the very last of them were the renegades. They were the outlaws. They were wolf outlaws, and they would kill for kicks.
Really?
Maybe just to jab a finger at the rancher going, I can do this, and I'll do it until you get me. Like the Custer Wolf of South Dakota killed $25,000 worth of cattle in the 20s, in the 1920s. That's a lot of cattle.
That's a lot of money.
You have 3 toes of Apis County. It's in Colorado. It also killed thousands of dollars worth of cattle. 3 toes in New Mexico.
3 toes.
3 toes was a killing son of a gun. I've got the book on that wolf, and there's a naturalist, a big naturalist, actually caught that wolf. I wish I could pull up his name right now, but that wolf ran with a mate, a female, and this trapper who became a big naturalist caught the female, and that wolf, the male, just like lost his mind and just started just going around the country howling and doing things unnatural to what he'd been doing before to evade trapping. And he finally set 3 or 4 traps in a trail and caught him on 3 legs. And he said, we took him to the ranch house. We bound his mouth, took him to the ranch house, and put a chain around his neck. And he said he laid down that night and faced the mountains and died.
Wow.
Crazy.
Holy cow. He was in New Mexico?
It's in New Mexico.
Okay, I'll try to pull him up. There's another 3 toes. 3 toes is pretty.
Oh man, it's and you would know the guy's name. He's a big naturalist.
But this might be it. But he faced the mountain and died.
Faced the mountain and died
that night.
They say Indians can do that too. They
Well,
can
I've
will
seen
themselves
cattle
to
do it.
die.
I've seen cattle do it. I've seen wild cattle back in the early 60s. We'd go out and catch a maverick out in the pasture that had never been caught before, put him in the pens, die that night.
Lost the will to live.
Lost their will to live.
It's crazy. Wolves are a fascinating creature, and I'm glad we don't have to jack with them. The
evil.
dynamic would be our dynamic out here would be a whole lot.
Well, we couldn't.
Different.
I mean, they couldn't coexist because of the cattle industry and the sheep. I mean, they would go to them. We don't have enough.
But it's such a romantic story. Like this wolf is just wrecking havoc, and you took his lady, and he's just going up and down the mountains, creating chaos.
The Great Spirit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I mean, this book, The Last of the Loners, is very fascinating, and it tells as much about the trappers as it is about the wolves. Like the guy who caught the Custer Wolf of South Dakota. I mean, that was a white wolf, and he only weighed like 98 pounds. But that wolf could kill. I mean, like just I
Was
mean,
it
like
Briggs?
150-pound wolf.
Clyde F. Briggs is the name I found here.
No, his name
Federal
was.
hunter?
I think his name was.
No,
last
for
name was-
three toes. Three toes. Federal hunter and trapper Clyde F. Briggs was finally called in the summer of 1925 to help find three toes. I might be looking at
look
a
up
different
look up the Custer wolf of South Dakota,
Okay.
and the guy looked like an Indian. He wore a flat brim hat, and his dad was an old wolfer in the 1800s, so he grew up around wolves. And he came in like in March and trapped for that wolf and finally caught him in October. And he said he broke the chain on the drag and he finally caught up with him and shot him and killed him. And it was a big white wolf. And I think he's actually mounted in some museum in South Dakota.
It's crazy the mystique with the wolves, and the thing is that they're not going to work today. Like you said, with the cattle and everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Indians. The older I get, the more sympathetic for Indians I become.
Oh, sure.
I mean,
Sure.
and it goes back to John F. Kennedy, and this has absolutely nothing to do with it. But if you look back in our history, when John F. Kennedy was president, we're finding out that the war machine and stuff had him killed. I don't think there's any doubt that they were involved.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
We're finding out how crooked our country's been.
Yeah.
And then, so that was the John F. Kennedy era. Well, then you go back behind him, goes to South Dakota. Mount Rushmore and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We've totally, our government has lied to us, and it's lied to everybody it's dealt with for these people. We don't know who they are. That's what's scary, is we don't even know who's running our country.
That's
and
right.
stuff.
Was
Absolutely.
it Harry Percival Williams? Was that the guy?
Yes,
Or the
Williams.
Custer?
Williams was his last name.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it says
Where did they trap the Custer?
They
Was it by
gave him-
Little Bighorn?
19.
They caught him near Custer, South Dakota.
Yeah, and that's how I got the name Custer. Custer.
Yeah,
Wolf.
Williams was his last name. H.P. Williams.
Yeah,
H.P. Williams, yes.
I remember all the trouble and grief he caused, but I tell you, I'd built up such a respect for the old devil that if he hadn't had a trap on one foot, I might have just killed him. I really think I might have. What does he say here? But I tell you, I had built up such a respect for the old devil that if he hadn't had a trap on one foot, I just might not have killed him. I really think I might have let him go.
Wow.
But yeah, just
I tell you, it's amazing. I was looking through a Haskell County history book one day, and I would have never known this until I was in Lubbock in McKenzie Park, and there's a historical marker there. In 1879, two cowboys were in Blanco Canyon, and they saw a mass movement of animals, like 5 or 10 abreast and miles long. And they rode over to them, and they were wolves.
really.
And they were headed in like a northwest direction, west-northwest. And there's a historical marker in Lubbock about the great wolf migration.
I'll be damned.
And it was after the slaughter of the buffalo. These were the Canis lupus ludovicianus, the buffalo wolf.
We're hungry.
The big northern buffalo wolves. They had lost their food base, and they were going. They didn't know where, but they
Right,
were
they
headed out of
just-
the country.
we got-
How many wolves, I wonder, were around when the buffalo migration was at its peak?
Oh my goodness!
Way before Wyman. What a wonderful place to have lived, to have been
Oh.
1600 in the plains of the United States.
To give you an idea, I have a book written by Young. He worked for the what's now the Fish and Wildlife Service. It was the Biological Survey back in the early days, and it's a history of the wolves. And he talks about old wolfers who didn't use traps; they used poison, nothing but strychnine. And he said they were the loneliest. I guess the low end of the totem pole of the hunters. You had your buffalo hunters that were just pretty nasty.
Yeah.
And he said then you had your wolfers.
Really.
He said they scraped the bottom of the barrel, basically. He said they would take a wagon, and they would take a team, and they would take strychnine and their rifles, and they would go out onto the range, and they would kill a buffalo, and they would skin him back, and they would make a paste with that strychnine and just paint it underneath that skin. The next day, as many as 80 dead wolves around one buffalo. He said the wolves were so plentiful that they would surround the guy as he was putting strychnine on the
Really?
carcass and sit and wait for him to leave.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And they're so smart.
So very intelligent.
And like you said, like they've got systems, they've got families, they've got a pecking order that they've established.
Right. And the only time they got broken up is whenever they come in and kill. You know, man comes in and disrupts that hierarchical system, and that's whenever they break up, and then they become sort of like, you know, see, in a hierarchical system, only the alpha male and female breed.
Right.
The rest of them are not allowed to breed.
Right.
In that family group. And so then once you break it up, then it's just indiscriminate.
How much of that do you see? Any of that in coyotes? The family system?
Oh yeah,
you do.
Yeah. Male and female, they'll mate maybe for 1 year, but the male and female take care of the pups.
And they'll run together. So the male will stay around until the pups are raised.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Well, I know the wolves have ruined many herds of deer and elk. They're I don't want Yellowstone is a place that they're really wiping out the elk.
Yeah.
Because they're out of control.
Well, are they wiping out the elk, or this is a question, just a question, or are the wolves putting it back at that level that it's always been?
Well, they could be putting it back to the level, and it's not the white man's standards, but it may be
Right.
nature's standards.
See, that's just it.
So
it's not our standards.
Right. But
they want lots. We want lots, and they're putting it more in balance with what it used to be.
Right.
I've never seen as many elk as I've seen in my life when I was at Yellowstone and going north out of Yellowstone.
And that's probably
into
not
Montana.
natural.
There's elk everywhere. But there wasn't rye fields, and there wasn't wheat fields, and there wasn't pivots back then. And a guy buys a 10,000 acre ranch up there. He wants 10,000 head of elk to shoot and hunt and stuff.
Right.
And he doesn't want any wolves. So, yes, it could be nature standards and man standards are completely different.
Yes, totally. I guarantee that's the case.
But when they reintroduce these wolves to these populations, I think in Minnesota they've reintroduced the wolf. It's wiped out their whitetail herd up there.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you want to reintroduce it with something that's going to wipe out what you.
Why? Okay. Again, qualify wipeout.
I don't know. I know that
Wipeout. Is it imbalance, or are we way out of proportion and now then it's imbalance again?
it's nature standards versus man standards.
Yes.
We don't know. I don't know what it is. I can't give you the numbers. I know the people that live in those places are seeing a huge difference.
Oh sure.
But
sure.
man has done a lot of good things. We've done a lot of horrible, evil things.
Absolutely.
But we wouldn't have any ducks and geese if it wasn't for Ducks Unlimited and some of these things.
Yeah.
We'd have wiped them out years ago. Because
Bunt
man,
guns,
because man was bad,
Yeah.
and he was greedy, and he did all that.
Passenger
same with
pigeons.
buffalo.
Yeah.
Passenger pigeons.
Sure.
Buffalo the same way. When I see these new these dove here, the Eurasian dove,
Eurasian, yeah.
I think that is pretty close to what a passenger pigeon should have been like. They said the skies were black with them.
Yeah.
Just black, and they shot every one of them.
They shot them with those, what are they calling, punt guns or bunt guns or
Punt guns.
Punt guns, yeah.
And just wiped them out. Did you know that they used air guns on the Lewis and Clark expedition?
I did.
I did not know that until a couple of
do
years
know that,
ago.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Some kind of a really powerful air gun, yeah.
You kill a bear with it.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I read a story about General McKenzie was on that trap, or was on. I don't know if he was on that trip. He was on another expedition, and he got attacked by a buffalo or a grizzly bear. Ripped his scalp off. He didn't drink or anything. He's not a drinker, and he asked the corpsman. He said, "Go get Medic Johnson and tell him to bring his kid over here. Would you like some whiskey, sir?" He said, "I really don't want him operating on me if he's drinking. I would prefer that no, just bring me my Bible." And he read the Bible. Well, they stitched his scalp back on.
Wow.
Talked about how he sat there and had him sketch his whole scalp back.
That's tough.
Oh,
Get me liquored up.
That's too tough, buddy.
Give me some of that rock gut whiskey.
That's
I don't
right.
care if it's hot, cold. Just I
So that
don't even
Indian
need a
whiskey
glass.
made with what is it? Some river water. Let's see, river water, alcohol, a pinch of strychnine, and a plug of chewing tobacco.
That's right.
Have you ever had any of that?
No,
Never.
No, heck
You've never
no.
you've
Hell
never made
no.
your own homemade whiskey.
No.
That tobacco deal, that Dr. History I was listening to, I ought to send him a bill for giving him a plug. 'Cause our podcast is a whole lot bigger than his is. But he talks about the old plug whiskey or the plug tobacco, about how they break them and chew that stuff off. And it just was the Cuban cigars though. They had Cuban cigars. The rich guys did back then.
Human cigar.
Cuban.
Oh, Cuban.
They got the Cubanos.
Oh,
And
okay.
they would get those, and they'd come in off them ships like St.
Yeah,
Augustine
yeah.
and stuff. And that was a big thing with all the rich people, was to have a Cubano cigar.
Yeah.
But it talked about how that we really have not changed. Tobacco products have not changed much from them days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had tobacco that they ground up like skull.
Oh, sure, sure.
And they had the snuff that they sniffed. And
Yeah.
then they had the Cubanos. And they have the, what's the other fancy cigars?
Cubans, all I know.
Raphael Pete's or something, or I've heard of them before.
Yeah.
He talks about this too, and it was crazy. The poor people would have the mel patch sack of snuff that they used.
Yeah.
But just how hard those plugs were, you get a plug, you just had to bite out a
Oh
plug.
my goodness! I just. Ooh.
I'm reading more about Custer, the Custer wolf. He says he drug that chain 3 miles away the night that they caught him.
That was in Mount Rushmore, or he was in the Badlands.
But he had gotten he stuck his foot in a trap and he basically drug it 3 miles away. The guy Williams had to follow him. It says by the time he made it to Custer, he had broken off most of his teeth, gnawing at the steel trap in a desperate, frantic attempt to rid himself of it. Blood foaming and dripping from his mouth, the wolf made an unnerving lunge to escape, and that's where Williams shot him.
Wow. O.D. Props, he was alive when I was a little boy, and he told about a wolf being caught outside of Benjamin and them having to track him for 2 or 3 miles in that rough country. It was a gray wolf, way back in the early days.
That wolf would weigh, what, 120 pounds?
Yeah, the big buffalo wolves, they said like, let's see. Talk about killing them up on the matadors up in there, and they were like 150-pound wolves.
We was in the Boundary Waters one summer, and we had wolves come into camp, and they howled right by our tent. Now, it sounded like they were behind the tent. It might have been a quarter of a mile away. But it is the most eerie. When you're in the middle of the dark and you're sleeping in a tent and you hear that noise, there's nothing in the world that sounds like a wolf hollering in the woods.
Yeah.
Nothing. I've heard a
I
mountain
agree.
lion
I
screech.
bet you.
I've heard a bobcat screech. I've heard coyotes. But when that wolf does it, if your hair don't stand up on your back, you're deaf. I'm telling you.
What was it? I was reading in a book somewhere or talking to an older person, and they were talking about the howl of a wolf at night and how eerie it was, how it would put fear into every rancher's heart.
Yes.
Because they knew that night that there was killing on their ranch ground somewhere.
That I can see that. It is an eerie sound.
Yeah.
If you want to go experience that too, you need to go to the plains of Saskatchewan. It is crazy when you get up there. You see elk, you see deer, you see bears in farming country, just like this everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's had to be the same way it is now.
Oh, yeah.
As it was back in the 16 and 1500s.
I've been to Saskatchewan, over at Saskatoon
Uh-huh.
in that area, photographing. Yeah, and that's open plains country and a big white-tailed deer.
Yes, big white
Real
tail.
big, yeah.
We one afternoon we were scouting. We saw elk, we saw bear, we saw whitetail, and we saw mule deer
Oh, big.
and moose.
Wow.
All in the same area. Well, how many places can you see all that?
They talk about that. I have a book, and it's The Journal of a Trapper is the name. It's not a thick book, perhaps 125 pages, but it's 2 guys talking about trapping in eastern Kansas, and they talk about the same thing.
Just the
Plains, open plains, and the grizzlies, and the mule deer, and the buffalo, and the elk, and the wolves. It must have been some kind of a mecca, a wildlife mecca.
So back to coyotes. What happens when that year's young grows up? Do they go off to find mates and suitable habitat?
What you have is it's like in August. Like right now, of course, they're going to weigh probably about 10, 12 pounds right now. And in November comes what's known as the fall shuffle. And that's whenever the young are kicked off, and that's when you're going to start seeing a lot of pups run over on the road.
Oh,
A lot of dead coyotes on the road, and then most of them are pups. And they're moving, trying to find a region, an area to settle in. Coyotes don't have territories like wolves do. Wolves have territories.
Right.
And nothing comes into that territory. And so, but coyotes will intermingle. So these pups are trying to find a region that has, ample food, water, and cover so they can survive. So in November is the fall shuffle. They're already basically pretty much on their own, but there's the adults are still hanging out with them right now. I've seen it actually, 2 adults with a bunch of young pups around 8 or 10 pounds, all following the adults through the pasture.
How many will they have offspring? Will they have 4?
Generally, when I was doing my research and digging up the dens and tattooing the pups, 5 to 7.
5 to 7, so that many.
Yeah.
And then do they all make it? What's the
No. You got
how many do you
distemper.
think are there right now? You think?
I don't have any stats on survivability.
How many
of them.
make it?
Would 30% be a high stat, you think?
No, I would figure 30% would be okay. Yeah.
If 5 to 7 little coyote pups, if 2 make it, mother did probably a pretty good job.
Yeah. I would say
3.
I'd say 3.
She did a good job.
Yeah.
And then November they'll have the shuffle. Now, when are they looking for, like, will males and females? When will the breeding? When does that become a priority?
The pre-estrus begins in January,
and then will you see another shuffle?
No, that's when the pre-estrus is when the females start to, they start to kind of like going into heat, but not yet.
Right.
They'll be exuding some blood, and then in February is when the actual mating season begins.
And then males will come from every direction for.
Oh, yeah, you'll see. I've seen 8 or 10 males with one female.
And then is there a pecking order established?
Oh yeah,
there's a big fight in February.
There's a big boy in the bunch. Yeah.
So the big boy's going to get laid.
Yeah.
Now, is it like wolves where only he's getting to propagate his genes into the future, or can the subordinates go to another?
Oh yeah. They're not like a wolf.
They're like Democrats; they'll bang anything.
Oh yeah.
So the subordinates can go off to a land where maybe
they'll
they
say,
can be
we've lost this one. Let's
guy.
go find us another one. Yeah.
Huh.
So one male will have multiple pups.
No. Once they pair up, that male stays with that female that season.
Okay, so there's not no.
One that is not like
He's not nailing
he's
15.
not-
It's not like a deer.
No.
completely different. They have a
They go
relationship.
dig a den. Usually it's a badger hole they enlarge. And when I used to hunt the dens to tattoo the pups for a home range study, I would ride horseback through the rough country, and you'd come up on just a Tobosa flat, and there'd be 2 or 3 badger holes. Well, I would get down and I'd put my ear to the hole, and you could hear those pups whimpering.
Really?
And you really couldn't tell that hole from any of the other holes. And then I'd go back. And of course, you have to go back that day, because once you left and if you were gone overnight, the female would leave, would move the pups. She'd come back that night, smell your presence, and boom, she's gone the next day. With the pups, everybody's gone. And so I would immediately lope back to the house, get in my Bronco, come back with a shovel, and then dig. And it would go down maybe 2 feet deep and maybe 6 or 8 feet long, and then have a nursing room, and then have little side rooms for the puppies to crawl up in and just lay up.
Really?
But there would be a big kind of like a gymnasium, so to speak, and that's where she would lay up and she'd nurse the pups.
Now,
Did you ever have do rattlesnakes get in with the pups and kill them?
No. They won't let that happen.
So the rattlesnakes don't jack with the coyotes.
No, because they're denning in. They den in May. They have their pups in May.
So
in
snakes
June.
are already going.
Snakes are already out and moving. They're not going to go to a hole.
Okay. Do you how many times you dig up a badger?
Oh, I've never dug up a badger.
That's a mean animal.
Yeah. This winter was real interesting. I was out calling for my last photographs for this book, and it was a cold day, little snow on the ground in the shadowed areas, and I was walking along an old road, and there was a badger lying in the mouth of his den. And just as I walked up to him, he turned and ran back down in, and I just stood there, and he came back out, and then he just laid down and put his chin on his feet and just sat there while I talked to him. And I bet I stayed there for 10 minutes
How close
taking
were you to him?
photographs. Here to that right there.
And never ever just kind of sit there and watch
He
it.
just
He
sit
just
there
watched you
and
and
just
listened to
closed
you.
his eyes. He just bat his eyes and he'd close them and he'd open them.
That'd make some cool pictures.
And I moved all around, got different angles, and then said, "Well, listen, I got to go. I got to go make a stand."
And he never.
And I walked off, and when I
Never
came
cared.
back, he was gone.
Did you see the video that Heath Welch had of their badger with the rattlesnake in its mouth?
No, but I've seen it before. I've seen that happen before on videos. Yeah,
He was caught it on video on an oil lease over here.
It was big too.
2 years
Big,
ago.
ra-
Big old rattlesnake.
Yeah.
Big
That old badger
rattlesnake.
just like a damn lab with a duck in its mouth, just proud of
Really?
himself. Yeah.
So when you were checking the dens to see if the pups were in there, what are the parents doing? Are they out trying to get
oh,
food?
they're okay. They'll either be they're within sight.
Uh-huh.
So they saw
I
you.
mean, they know you're there.
They knew you were there.
Sometimes they'll stand off and bark.
Really?
And you'll see them off there 200 yards away, and but they don't ever come in real close to you.
Do they do anything? Because you see birds do this. They'll play wounded or something like that to where a
The
predator,
killdeer.
killdeer will do that.
What a female or a male will do is if you're trotting by a den with a horse, they'll be right close to you and they'll try to lead you away.
Really?
The
They're
They're
female
not
coyote will.
acting cripple. They're just
They're
real
just
close
trying
to
to
you.
push you away.
Just real close
The
to you.
killdeer is one of the most interesting ones. The way
Oh
it does it.
yeah.
And if nobody's ever seen it, you need to video or YouTube it. A killdeer with a nest. We saw one in
In
Mackinac
Michigan.
Island last year.
Yeah.
When in the parking lot.
was-
She was
Yeah.
Big old actress. She had her wing cocked to the side, and she
Yeah.
was just making this god awful sound like it. But she had a nest close by,
Yeah.
and I mean they have to do what they have to do. So they always see you, and then so you said you'd find it, you'd go get your Bronco, and then you'd right back to it. Otherwise,
We'll go right back to
she's
it.
moving 'em.
If you wait till nightfall, they're gone the next day.
And then whenever you dig them up, are they're still just right there, kind of observing you,
Yeah, you put them right back in that hole, what's left of it, and the next day go back and they're gone.
and they're gone.
She's moved them to a secondary den.
Now, when you were tattooing them, did you ever find any that you had tattooed
did.
the next year?
6 months later, and they weigh 20. When I tattooed them, they weighed a quarter of a pound, and whenever I caught them again, they weighed 21 pounds.
Wow,
that's crazy.
1 mile away.
1 mile away.
6 months later.
Well, they live in the same 3 or 4 mile area their whole life.
Yeah. The home range of a coyote is about 9 square miles, 3 by 3.
How old are they when they come out of the den?
They'll actually start, fiddling around catching bugs and stuff at about 6 weeks old. You'll find little feces all out away from the den, and they're about the size, jackrabbit, a little bit smaller than jackrabbit.
But whenever you were catching them, did they even have their eyes open
Oh, no.
yet? I'm assuming
No.
they're like a regular dog.
They're just,
where
a tiny little fluffy, just a ball of fur.
How many people do you know that's ever had coyote as a pet?
I had one.
How'd that work out?
It worked out fine until he found my dad's chickens.
Uh-oh.
And
That
he,
was all
and he
she
killed,
wrote.
killed one every day, and I took him and let him go. I mean, he ran wild. He stayed under the barn, or he stayed down the pasture, and at night he'd come up in the yard and play with the dogs, jump on their cots, and used us as a springboard to jump on the dogs. And then he found the chickens, and he started eating one. And
Dad said that's enough.
and Daddy said, "You're gonna have to take him off." So I took him all the way over here to the Knox City Highway from the Rhineland Highway and let him go on a.
So he was killing
tank,
somebody
stock
else's chickens in by then, probably.
Yeah, probably so. His name was Caschatus.
Because child.
Shot us.
Yeah.
I've never known anybody have a pet. I had a pet bobcat for
I
about
had a
4
pet
days.
bobcat.
That was the worst experience I ever had in my life.
That was a tough. I had to let him go.
Well, mine was my wife told me get rid of that cat, and I took it to people, and I was scared to death of that sucker. And it was about 6 weeks old. It sounded like a Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to get one pissed off at you.
No, it was mean as hell. I've always wanted to have a raccoon, but everybody says they're terrible.
Oh no, my
tear up
goodness!
more shit?
They just tear up everything. I've seen people with them, and they say all have the same story. They tear up everything.
Somebody had a computer I knew that had one, and
Took
it
the-
popped all the buttons off the computer.
Oh, good gracious!
Can you imagine trying to put them all back in?
Oh my gosh!
I'd kill somebody. So back to your book. We've strayed. You've got your foreword.
Yes.
What else have we got?
Yes. Well, it's broken down into chapters. Like I say, this is not a book about how to kill things. I mean, I've killed a lot of coyotes in 57 years of calling. but this is just more or less a salute to the art of calling. And you've got the chapter 1 is A Predator Caller is Born in October the 17th, 1965, and I call it my first coyote. Mm-hmm. Shot him with a 30-30 running at 247 yards. And I put rocks on the blood spot and went back a few years ago with a rangefinder, and I thought, well, I probably exaggerated that. Exactly 247 yards.
Really?
Yes, with a 2.5 power scope on a 30-30 Marlin.
That's what I killed my first coyote with.
I'm sorry?
That's what I killed my first coyote with. A 30-30 Marlin with a shitty scope.
With a Sears and Roebuck 2.5 power scope.
Yeah, up at Gilland.
And then this chapter 2 is a history, and that goes into the 1854, and then I kind of give a basic history of up to the present date. And then chapter 3 is predator calling as an art. That is, I practiced with a call all since I was a kid, and I have a very distinct way of calling, and it is kind of an art form. It's like music. And then chapter 4 is thinking like a predator. You gotta kind of, this is coyote country, and you got cedar berries, you got mesquite beans, and this is an area where they'll use in the daytime. This is an area they're going to use at nighttime. And then chapter 5 will be rules for success of field, just your basic rules of approaching a stand, and also camouflaging yourself against a backdrop. Chapter 6 is the natural history of fox, coyote, and bobcat. And then chapter 7 is behavioral aspects of the animals, how each one of them acts. And then chapter 8 is anecdotal experiences of field while calling. Mm-hmm. And there's about 200 pages, probably 150 photographs, charts, pie charts, bar charts, data that I've collected over 40 years of calling experiences of weather conditions, wind directions, all this information. And then I actually went back and used some of my information from my research when I was at Tech on food habits of coyotes and rolling plains. Although something drastic has changed since then. Back then we didn't have near the whitetail numbers, right, and we had no wild hogs. Right. And that's made a big difference.
In the body size.
A lot more predation on hogs. A lot more.
Go ahead, Andy.
Do you notice, is there a certain call or cadence that works better with mature coyotes than, like, say, a younger pup?
Not really.
No?
Not
like
really.
That?
To me, an older coyote is easier to call up than a pup. Because a pup is just kind of like a young kid. He's just kind of out there, just kind of farting around, But an older animal, he's there for keeps.
Doing business.
He's there. I'm going to go get me something.
Yep.
Right. What was the toughest chapter for you to write in all of that? Whenever you look at your chapter list laid out, was there one that you were just like, God, this is a lot tougher than what I thought it might be?
It was just a process of writing. Mm-hmm. And trying to write in a manner that is interesting to both callers and non-callers. Someone who's interested in just I wonder if that would be kind of a cool thing to do.
Right.
And trying to play to both crowds in a manner that would be nice and equal. Because I'm not. You can take this and use it for research. You can take it and use it for just watching animals come in, to photograph, or to shoot with a rifle.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to cover everybody. And so I had to kind of, there's no big hero shots of me holding up 15 dead coyotes.
Right. I don't think
I've been through that stuff before.
Yeah.
They want the content, what you have
right.
to say.
And it's not about that.
Did you have more pressure on you, because you've said this is probably going to be your last book? Did you put more pressure on yourself to make sure that this was perfect?
I did. And we've been through a lot of editing.
Right.
And I actually rewrote a large part of it. It's going to be about 20,000 words. And so
I can't wait to see it.
It's going to be great. And you're hoping for October at the earliest?
Hoping for October, yeah, and you can go to actually for For pre-orders, you can go to wymanmeinzer.com and go to the official store, and for a first edition, and
What's the book running?
it's going to be what, $75.
$75. Best $75 you'll spend. If you've got someone in your life that is older person especially, and they appreciate things from the past, this is a great Christmas gift for them. I mean, it's something they will cherish. When they open that up and they see that, they think, oh, yes. Because it's not going to give them just 3 or 4 or 5 minutes of excitement. It's a bunch of reading and a bunch of looking it up, and the pictures will be amazing. So I recommend it.
And, kind of where you are in your life, you can take different lessons from it. If you're in the kill stage, you can get a lesson. And
Right.
You can reread it 10 years from now and have a totally different mind shift.
I just want to photo. There's so many people saying, I used to hunt all the time, and now I just like to take a camera and a rifle, and I use mostly the camera. And that's kind of where I am in my life. I call up, 2 to 250 coyotes a winter, and I may shoot 15 just to keep my notes going.
Right.
If I don't keep this, like the age and the weight and the weather conditions, my notes die for 40 years, and I don't want that to happen. But it's a funny thing that whenever I go out and I call up a coyote and I shoot it, I have regrets.
Yeah.
And I don't want to waste it. And so I go and I take all this scientific information off of it. I remember I took some people out one time calling, and it was to shoot. And so we'd shot, 15 or 20. And they were all slinging them in a draw. And I said, hold it, guys. That's not the way you treat these animals. Let's show a little respect. And so I made them go down there and pick all of them up. And I said, where would they be right now in the middle of the day? They'd be on the shady side of a bush on a sunny day. So let's put them there. And it's you just have a little bit more respect for the animal as you get older.
Well, he gave up his life for you to get your kicks off.
That's right.
So have a little bit of dignity.
That's right.
I want to change up just a minute. You talked about mesquite beans. Have you ever made mesquite bean coffee?
I have heard. Who was it I talked to just recently? Who bought some, and they said it's pretty good.
You can make it yourself.
Yeah, and this guy was a coffee maker, but he didn't make his own. He bought a bag, and he said it's pretty good stuff.
I've been seeing a lot of it advertised, and we got a lot of beans this year.
Yeah,
and everybody
reckon.
says when you got beans, you're going to have a cold winter. I hope they're right. I don't know if
hope they're right.
I hope they are too. But you roast them in the oven.
Yeah,
and then put them in a grinder.
At certain degrees.
Yes,
dryer, and then you grind them up,
and you drink them like coffee.
Of course, I'm not a coffee drinker, but it would be interesting to taste it.
I drink coffee some, but I like tea more than I do coffee.
I drink green tea. Yep.
To start your day every morning. I'm a coffee. Were you ever a coffee guy, or you always
Never.
a tea guy?
I tried it in college, trying to stay up for finals. Never worked.
Never worked.
Did you ever take no-dos?
Never.
I took them on going to skiing one time. We were going to drive all night. I was like, I'll take some no-dos. Never done it before, so I took one like at 11 o'clock. Some bitches knocked me on my ass. I was tired. I took them. I'm 15 minutes later. I'm trying to drive. I'm like, oh, my God. These things did not work. They did not help me stay up. They made me sleepy. But I can drink a cup of coffee or tea and go to bed. Caffeine does not do that to me.
I couldn't too.
I think I've killed my receptors. My caffeine, whatever receptor that is, I think I've killed it just from years of being up so early and always drinking a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Because we were in when we were on vacation, I had an espresso, and then we got in the car to go somewhere. I was asleep 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I just had an espresso. I should be awake.
I've had good coffee before. I was at Boone Pickens' one time when I was shooting that book on his place, and he said, "You want a cup of coffee?" And I, yeah, I guess so. And you're drinking some.
Yeah.
And I liked it.
Yeah.
But it's just something I never really got started on.
The best coffee that I ever have is it. And we've got a sponsor, Dirty Duck Coffee, and they have good coffee. And I like the Missouri Boat Ride. It's a pecan coffee. But I drink coffee at City Hall at Knox City before I have court. I get a big old glass every day. And I drink more coffee at City Hall, Knox City. Like out here in the wintertime, we have coffee going all the time, and I'll drink some coffee. But in the summertime, I'm not drinking coffee. It's too hot. Andy and them, my boys, they all get up and have coffee every morning. I'm like, how do y'all drink that shit in the morning?
I think it's just routine more than anything.
Yeah, it's routine.
I think it's just something that's just how I start my day. And, I'm going to watch a little bit of the news, and then I'm going to start my day. But I don't know how much of an effect it has on me anymore.
It doesn't jap you up and go.
I mean, it's just like, I think it's more like a symbolic, this is how my day starts. And
exactly. And a lot of that's with the green tea also. I like get up, I do my exercises 7 days a week. If I'm not on the road, I get up in the morning, do exercises, lift some weights, and then I'll eat a bite, and then I'll get me some green tea and sit down, and it's the beginning of
You're
the
an
day.
oatmeal guy, aren't you?
Well, I tell you, I hadn't had an oatmeal in a while. I got burned out on that stuff. I eat a cereal, kind of a nut cereal.
Which one?
Oh, what is it?
Jessie, Andy's wife, has it. What's that one she eats?
Kashi?
No.
K-A-S-H.
What is this? I don't know. I bought some
I like oatmeal.
yesterday.
I like
I like oatmeal, but after you've eaten it for a year every morning, it's like, I'm going to try something different.
My favorite breakfast is poached eggs on toast. My grandmother was English, so my mom would make poached eggs on toast.
Yeah.
I don't know why more people don't do it. It's not. It's a fried egg, but it's boiled in water.
Well,
There's nothing fattening to it.
I fell off the wagon this morning. I came to Knox City and I had huevos rancheros with crispy bacon.
That's the way to go.
Man, that is the way to start a day.
I've had so many guys tell me that they see you there. They're like, my God, Wyman Meizner was at Isabella's eating breakfast. I said, yeah, they're 4 days a week probably. Eat breakfast a lot there, or lunch.
My wife and I eat lunch there every day.
Yeah. Like,
I eat the same thing. It's a chicken with little shrimp, pieces of shrimp on it.
Yeah.
because they'll be like, did you know he goes to regular places? Yeah. It's like you think he hangs out with celebrities all the time? You
In
know?
Benjamin, Texas.
Yeah, he's
you
over
just
at-
got all these celebrities.
He's
up
over
there.
at Guthrie hanging out with Kevin Costner sometimes. Yeah, he's right there. He's one of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, listen, we really appreciate you coming out here. Good luck on your book.
You bet. Thank you.
I hope it goes incredibly well. Pre-order. You can pre-order it right now, and
You can. We've already made received lots of orders actually, thousands of dollars worth.
good deal. And then it'll be ready hopefully October. Nothing else November.
Does
So,
$75 come with shipping, or is this shipping separate?
Nah, shipping's gonna be extra.
Okay, so $90, less than $100. You
Probably
can get.
less than $100. And I'm telling you, this is accumulation of over a half a century of information and experience.
Where's all your notes going to when you pass? Kids or college?
You know what? That's a good question. I've had some people ask me. I don't know, but it's going to go to Southwest Glacier somewhere.
It's a sad day when Wyman Meinzer's gone because we're going to lose a bunch of knowledge, and we don't have much knowledge out there anymore.
Well, I appreciate the kind thought there.
We don't. We've lost a lot of that.
We have, and I tell you, as much as anything, the information that I've gleaned from the old people I used to work with,
Yeah.
the old stories. It's like the Indians passing stories to their youth. Like I said earlier, when I worked with the older guys, 1884, 1889, and I heard their way of life, and I've sort of mixed mine with the old ways. Like the other day, I went down to Batch Camp, my old trapping cabin, and sat down there and cleaned. It brought back memories of another time, and I'll always cherish that. And I cherish the stories of those old men and women that I used to talk to.
I was talking about that today on Facebook, as I used to go to Skiles Brothers the gas station.
Yeah.
And I loved Weldon and Weldon. God Almighty, they made me laugh because they talk about everything. And Weldon told me one time, he said, or Willard, I can't remember which one. I think it was Willard, told me, he said, Jeff, he goes, there's no shame in being poor. There's only shame in staying poor. I thought, that's right.
Yeah.
But I used to go up there, and I always felt bad. Michelle goes, why don't you go up there more? I said, well, I'm 28 years old. These guys are 70-something, and it's mostly old people. But when I would go up there, I would love it because I would just sit and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd ask questions about stuff.
Yeah.
And looking back now, they loved having me come there because I was asking them things they wanted to talk about.
Sure.
Because when I have a young guy that talks to me about something, they'll be like, Mr. Stanfield, we hate to bother you. No, I like talking about stuff in the past.
Right.
I really enjoy it.
Absolutely.
My boys, they've heard all my stories. They don't want to ask me nothing anymore.
Yeah.
But that's going to be lost. We don't have enough storytellers.
It is.
And we need a lot of that. Anyways, I do appreciate you being on here, Wyman. Your book's going to be a huge success.
Thanks for having me.
You
I
bet.
really appreciate you guys.
And we look forward to having you on again with us in the spring sometime when hunting season's over.
Sounds good.
You got anything, Andy?
that's it.
All
Good.
right, go check out our sponsors. Go out, Lucky Duck, get that blind. Talk to you later. God bless y'all. Have a great week.
Ladies and gentlemen, go check out all of our wonderful sponsors before you get out of here. Go check out Boss Shot Shells, Dive Bomb Industries, Pacific Calls, Gun Dog Outdoors, Shin Gear Waders, Lucky Duck, Looking Glass Duck Club Podcast, Alpha Outdoor Specialties, Bangtail Whiskey, Stanfield Hunting Outfitters, Ducks Unlimited, Dirty Duck Coffee, and Double T British Kennel.